They're rushing in to see the murals, the world-famous Victor Arnautoff Murals. It's been opened up today, a special 2-hour showing of the murals, and people are coming into the murals to watch them. I think that the effort to destroy the murals has brought about a great interest in what these murals are.
Learn about the world as the world is, not a fictionalized account. This is pure fiction.
What's pure fiction?
What's fiction is, the content slaves over here, the no Native Americans really to speak of, the people who had the guns are the ones who made the rules.
What's that mean?
So what's fiction about the mural?
I've already said what's fiction about it.
To me,
It's viewpoint. Oh,
Isn't that
you all don't look alike. I know I said that.
Isn't that what art is?
That's, we're not in a gallery. We're in a high school. This is a high school. You come to learn history as history was lived by people generations and generations before you. Not a fictionalized version of it. This is a fictionalized version.
What is the true version?
The true version is the land was occupied. You don't see people occupying the land. You see those nice African American men.
It's the slave.
They're trying to figure out how to escape without getting killed or having their feet chopped off or their hands chopped off.
That's part of the history.
That is part of the history, but that's not shown there.
Do you think there should be additional murals?
So,
Do you think there should be of that part of the history? Dewey Crumpley was commissioned.
I don't think it's about the murals. The name is going to remain Washington High School. You have a lovely statue of General Washington there.
Wasn't he a slaveholder?
Oh my goodness, all down the ages, American presidents have been slaveholders. And they've also been fathers of black children.
Should they be honored?
He's the first president of the country. That's an honor. He has a statue. People sound as if people want the whole eradication of his presence at the high school, and that is not it.
I'm Lope Yap Jr. I'm Vice President of the George Washington High School Alumni Association.
So we're here today in front of George Washington High, and the school district has deigned to open it up for 2 hours.
Isn't that nice?
Short notice?
Yes, so nice. And I want to say it's George Washington High School Alumni Association, George Washington High School. It's not just a street address. I honor the name, I honor the school.
And this whole controversy about destroying the murals, first of all, why would the superintendent and school board support the idea of destroying murals at George Washington High School?
Well, I think it's one of many things on their agenda, one being destroying priceless art, changing names of schools or streets or estates that have the names of people that have any association to slavery or mistreatment of First Nation people. So they can go all the way. They probably would like to change the nation's capital, paint the rotunda at the Capitol building, and then they probably want to, blow up Rushmore.
How would it be that the school board and the superintendent would not know that the decision or their drive to destroy these murals would create such a backlash? It seems like they're surprised.
I think they are surprised. I think they thought that if they could do this in June and have a summer break, they'd come back and start painting.
Stephen Cook said, let's move on to other things.
That's right. Right. Like, this is not a big deal. You'll see now. And there was word out, in fact, Willie Brown actually said over a weekend, he was traveling all over the city, and no matter where he went, the mural issue was second only to what's happening in the White House.
My name is Carl Soltero. I drove up from San Jose, California.
And you heard about this mural. Why did you drive all the way up to San Francisco to see these murals?
Because images speak louder than words very often, and there's many, many images up here, and there's a lot of strong emotions. I understand that, pro and con. But I think what's healthy is to let people know the truth. Too often we've hidden the truth, and granted, this shows some bad, ugly images, but it's still the truth. And to me, it's important that kids, younger generations, understand the truth, the history of what's going on in this country for many hundreds of years, especially in the political climate that we live in. They need to awaken their consciousness, understand the role of history, and what came before them affects them now.
And why would you think the school board and the superintendent want to destroy these murals?
Well, I mean, there's different political and historical views of people. Like I could compare it to what happened in San Jose with Peter Burnett Middle School being renamed Ohlone Middle School because of who Peter Burnett was. Peter Burnett was the first governor of California. His policy was to whip blacks every 2 weeks and exterminate Native people. And yet it came to the attention over the years with revisionist history, blah, 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 about how, hey, this guy was pretty bad. So they took the name off and now they renamed it Ohlone Middle School to honor the Native people. And I worked with a group that was trying to name the school in honor of Sofia Mendoza, a beloved civil rights activist in San Jose. She came in second, that they told us other schools down the road will be named one of them in her honor. So I did my job.
So you have no problem renaming schools, people who have committed atrocious acts or racist acts?
Well, the bad part of revising history is, in effect, you're asking people to admit guilt for the ugly things they may have done if you're a white person. And that's an unfortunate part of the process, but I think it's something we run from. I don't ask white people to feel guilty. I just ask them to engage me and talk about the history so we can all understand the role of what history has done to us and not done to us. So for me, it's a thing about admitting the guilt, so to speak, and that's not easy to do. I understand that, But until that happens, I mean, look at Germany. You go to Germany, they talk about it openly. They acknowledge it, what happened during World War II and stuff. So I think this is part of that process. It'll get better. And we'll learn to communicate about it and understand each other better.
So the La Raza Historical Society, from your point of view, supports defending the murals?
Oh, I can only speak for myself. I can't speak for what the board of directors would say. This is just my own personal wanting to observe and check it out.
You think this has kind of backfired on the board by trying to destroy the murals? Have actually brought attention? I mean, this place is packed here this afternoon.
I read a bit up on the author, and I fully understand how his intention was to, as I said, start the process, admitting the guilt. What can we do to resolve it? How can we get along better? But I think it's been twisted. I don't want to say twisted, but some people have cherry-picked the facts for whatever their agenda may be, and I can understand how somebody wants to get rid of it, but at the same time, what he was trying to say is something that's very noble. He was trying to say, this is what really, really happened here in this country. And it's ugly, granted, but at the same time, like I said, young people got to understand the flow of that history so they can not let these things happen again.
You think we need more murals?
Sure. I'm trying to put some up in San Jose, absolutely. So we're trying to put up a bunch of murals in San Jose, working on that, yeah.
Actually, young people and artists can be having more murals about the history.
Sure. Like I said, images speak louder than words often, People don't read anymore. People just look at a damn computer screen. And an image of a mural could spark the consciousness of young people and everybody, really. So that's why I'm really much into murals, yeah.
My name is Jose Cuellar, a.k.a. Dr. Loco, and I'm Professor Emeritus of Latino and Ethnic Studies at San Francisco State University.
And this is quite a controversy. I mean, all these people showing up at George Washington High. What's going on here?
I think it's an impressive response to the controversy of folks bringing up the issue of whether these murals have a positive or a negative impact on students and others who see them. And it was brought up before the school board. In addition to being a local issue, though, Willie Brown's taking it to CNN and taking the position in support of retaining the murals, etc., has made it a national, if not international, issue. And folks now are here that might not have been here had it not reached that level of communication, media exposure. I think, it's another kind of, in many ways, a sexy issue, and it's impressive to me who's here. How many people of color are here or not here in this crowd, represented, taking pictures and making commentary. How many folks are older as opposed to younger? Well,
President,
how Eurocentric and older this population is here that is observing, by and large. And
President Trump has said that if you take down murals of the Confederacy, Confederate leaders, Jefferson and others, that you should take down Washington and statues of Jefferson. What's your view about the removal of murals and statues?
I think for me, it's a very difficult issue in terms of both the intent and the interpretation. This statue here, we could take down or approach it in a way of understanding the imperial representation of the slave owner. And the same thing with that mural, pointing how this slave owner in here is implied that he promoted manifest destiny over dead Indians and making peace treaties that are never kept. And so there's different ways of interpreting these murals that I think we could explore. So,
well, most people in the United States are unaware that George Washington was a slaveholder and that he supported the expansion into the West, the taking over of Native American lands.
Amazing ignorance, huh? Isn't it amazing? What happened in schools? What's happened in this school that over all these years with these murals, no education about what these murals mean?
Good question.
Isn't that amazing? This is not the issue of the murals, it's an issue of education and educators. And the Board of Superintendent of Education and the Superintendent should really explore why the failure to educate, obviously an element intended to be used to educate, one way or the other.
Yeah, it is amazing. There's no signage, there's no information.
It's just ignored, It was just, So that's the question is, why did the Board of Education fail to educate? Why has this been such a failure to let people know? Why are people that went to school here, it's the first time they're really seeing it. People here, I've heard people say, I went to school here, I didn't really notice it. Right?
But actually this controversy is brought out, this history, and now people are paying attention, and what is it all about? 83 years after the mural.
So it's about, thinking about leaving the statue but renaming it Ohlone High School.
My name is Pete Arnautoff. I'm Victor Arnautoff's grandson.
And are you surprised by this effort to destroy your grandfather's murals?
Absolutely. And he would be abhorred if he knew about it.
But actually, it's made his murals come to life 83 years after.
Yes, he would be overjoyed with the reaction that we're getting. So.
And why do you think that the school board would vote unanimously to destroy the murals? All of them, not just the ones of slavery?
I have no idea. You'd have to talk to them. I mean, it seems like they didn't really entertain any alternative viewpoints. They just completely voted against it, and that's the end of the story.
And when he was here in the United States, he was witch hunted. The FBI was trying to get him out. What was the history of Arnautoff in the Bay Area, your grandfather?
Well, that's a big question. With a lot of answers. He came to the United States after leaving China. He escaped Russia after the revolution because he was the Tsar's cavalry officer and he had to escape for his life. So he went into China and then he came to California for a short period to go to school, and then he worked with Diego Rivera on the recommendation of somebody here in San Francisco.
So he actually painted with Diego Rivera?
Yes, he worked with Diego Rivera. Actually, in Diego Rivera's biography, he mentions my grandfather. He said that he left Mexico to go do one of the many trips he was going to take, and he left instructions for him to paint this mural a certain way, and he said he came back and he completely had to redo it.
You didn't follow your Diego Rivera?
According to him, not according to him. So.
And in Mexico City, there are many Diego Rivera murals that showing the subjugation of indigenous people, showing the tremendous exploitation, and yet in Mexico City, the children are brought to them by the teachers.
Sure, it's a teachable moment. I mean, why ignore history? Why paint it over? That's what they're proposing here.
And I mean, it seems like in the United States, shouldn't children be brought to these murals to learn about the history?
Of course, absolutely. That's what they're for, to spark conversation, to learn about not just the glossy points of our history, but all aspects of our history.
And the school board voted unanimously. There's going to be an initiative on the ballot in San Francisco to oppose the destruction. What's the atmosphere like that this could happen, that a school board and the superintendent would vote unanimously to destroy the murals?
Well, I mean, everybody in, the circles that I speak with they're in disbelief. They cannot believe that such a one-sided initiative has been pushed through, without, entertaining the opinions of all parties.
Now, your grandfather has done many murals, not just these and Coit Tower and other places. It seems like if they take this one down, there could be others on the way.
Well, sure. I mean, they could destroy statues. They can, they can change the state of Washington. They can rename Washington, D.C. How far does it go?
So what's your solution to this issue?
Solution? Leave the murals. They've already had Dewey Crumpler come and paint an alternative mural that showed a lot of positive contributions of many of America's indigenous peoples and the slaves. So use it as a teachable moment. I mean, that's what art is for.
You think your grandfather would be happy that this controversy over his murals 83 years after he painted?
Oh yes, I think he would be. Controversy is good for an artist, especially if it's related to his work, or her work.
Other countries, it's not too much of our own. So, yeah.
Why did you decide to come here today?
I was actually driving by. I was showing my good friend around the city, just driving around, and I saw a whole bunch of people standing outside of the school, and I wanted to come up to see what was going on, and I'm actually really glad that I stopped by. Richard Gillette.
Did you go to Washington High?
Yeah, I graduated class of 2010.
What do you think about the murals? Were you traumatized by the murals, or?
No, I was not traumatized. I really appreciated the art that they had up on these walls, and I hope that they don't paint over them. People may not like the images that are up on the wall, but I feel like they tell a very important story as far as what went on, and trying to cover them up is, I don't know. It's kind of like hiding the history that a lot of people don't want to see. It's not so much as being reminded, but it's just keeping in the back of your head that this has happened. So try not to forget what people have done to people of color, people of different race in this country.
So you feel that this history of slavery has not really been exposed to people in this country, but George Washington?
No, I feel like it's been exposed, but just as much as it's been exposed, it's been more or less tried to be cover up. It's just, oh no, it's in the past, forget about it, let's move on and let's move forward, when that's basically what they're saying here. Let's paint over this and let's move forward. You paint over these images and you start to erase all of these stories from history, it becomes to the point where the future generations don't walk in here, they don't see this, they don't ask the questions that I asked when I came to the school when I saw these paintings.
And when did you come to the school?
I came here in 2006.
You had questions about these murals?
Yeah, I had a couple questions I asked about the paintings on these walls. One of my favorite teachers, who's, I don't know if she's the teacher here, but Miss Kamiani, she would always talk to us about the racial issues out in San Francisco and just across the world. So being able to talk to somebody about these images and having that actual push to educate yourself on this type of stuff, it felt good.
Did you ever hear the word, "we'll meet by the dead Indian"?
What'd you say?
Some of the people who want to remove the murals said that people have been said, we'll meet by the dead Indian. That's why we should remove the murals.
I mean, they can have whatever saying they want. I wasn't here when they made the saying up. So,
you never heard that?
No. So as far as like the dead Indian on a wall or let's meet by that, that's not really, I feel like those are people who look for issues. Let's say let's meet by the dead Indian, because you can also say let's meet by the guy in the teal shirt. Let's meet by the bridge. Let's meet by this part. But if you want to sit and pick just the only things that make you mad about the paintings or make you mad about the art, of course you're only going to receive bad feedback from the art. You have to look at it as an overall story and history of what went on out here. And I feel like that's much, much harder to do for a lot of people, because the simple is just so easy. The hate is so easy to be a part of.
Victor Arnautoff? Victor Arnautoff, the painter, the artist. Did you know about him before you came to the school?
No, I did not. I was not big on researching artists. I was not big on trying to find out who painted what pictures. More or less, I was just an artist who liked to do my own kind of art, and it just I gravitated towards the paintings because I was doing art of my own.
So actually, this art helped you in your own work?
Yeah, in a way, it did, because it was a painting that I got to come in here and see every day, where it's somebody who actually took a lot of time, patience, and detail into putting this painting up on the wall, which is a lot harder for a lot of artists to do, is to take the time to paint something as controversy as this inside of a school, inside of a predominantly white and Asian neighborhood outside of the inner city.
And Crumpley, Dewey Crumpley, what did you think of his murals?
I don't know who that is.
Okay, yeah, he painted some other murals in this building as well to show the struggle of people against racism and against apartheid.
Like I said, I'm not really big on researching paintings. I just know not a lot about this one, but I'm familiar with this one because I came to the school along.
And your teacher was aware of it?
The teacher was aware of what?
Of these paintings.
I'm not sure if she was aware of the paintings, but she would always bring it up, and like not so much as always bring it up, but she would always kind of refer back to it, like, you guys should take a look at the paintings around our school and just kind of take a look back on our history, not on our history, but on the history of just like what was going on.
Some of the issues that have been raised is why there are no signage, why there's no information here about these murals. Do you think there should be information about the murals, signage, and that kind of thing?
I mean, yeah, there could be. But the thing with art is they always say to take a couple steps back and just try to examine it and receive from it what you feel is what the artist is trying to explain to you. So putting up signs, yeah, but then that's kind of giving people the thoughts. Then you're giving them what to think. You're telling them this is what this is, you should think this. Whereas if they're looking at it from the outside without a description, without any details on it, they can actually take in the art and receive it for what it is or what they believe it is. So of course there's going to be a lot of critics and people saying, oh, I don't like this or I don't like that, but when it comes down to it, this is what art is. You know what I mean? It's supposed to raise an eyebrow here. It's supposed to make you think about something there. It's especially when it's something as, like you said, controversial as this, where it's depicting racism and colonialism and slavery and all of that type of stuff.
Are you surprised by all this controversy?
Me, in today's world, no, because the media, the internet, and everything else that goes on around it kind of just adds fuel to the fire of what it is. So instead of it being just a topic for what it is, it kind of gets fueled into being something way more. Like 10 years ago when I was going to the school, just about 10 years, you wouldn't have seen this. There wasn't people coming in saying, oh, we should paint these walls, we should do this. But then back then, 10, 15 years ago, all we had was MySpace, Facebook. We had the basic of the internet. We didn't have too much of like YouTube or Instagram, Twitter, and everything like that, where people can post stuff and everything gets pushed out a lot faster. So I feel like with media, it's kind of just fuels the entire controversy of the entire painting.
What kind of art do you do?
Me, when I was in high school, I did a lot of graffiti. I did a lot of just self-portraits when I came here. They actually got me into doing more in-depth art, sculpting and actual painting and stuff like that. But I started out doing graffiti and just drawing pictures out of comic books, and whatever I like to see, I would try to recreate it or recreate it in a different way of my own taste.
So this added to it, your knowledge of art?
Huh?
This mural added to your knowledge of art?
Yeah, it not so much it added to my knowledge of art, but it did add to just how I perceived art. Because I used to get in trouble for doing graffiti, right? But you can come into a school if somebody wants you to and paint an entire story or an entire history of something that a lot of people don't want to see. That's why it's controversy, and it can be okay. So I feel like with art, a lot of people aren't going to want to see things, but that's what art is. It's to put it in your face. It's to show you what this is. There's a lot of art that people don't like, but I don't see why they would want to paint over something that also has educational value to it.
I'm Robert Cherney, and I wrote a biography of Victor Arnautoff. Washington, toward the end of his life, had decided that slavery needed to go, and he freed his own slaves at the end of his life. I've never found any suggestion that he was a brutal slave owner. And Arnautoff shows enslaved African Americans, makes it very clear that Washington's prosperity was dependent on slave labor, but he's not showing Washington as brutal.
Is there some irony that the city of San Francisco, known to be a very left-wing place, is threatening Arnautoff's art?
It strikes me that way, yes. It certainly does. For those who find these depictions to be troublesome, I cannot criticize their position. You know, they feel what they feel when they look at these pictures. I have a different reaction when I look at these. And to me, the work of the school board is to find a way to recognize both of those perspectives as being equally legitimate. And that might mean, for example, that there's some kind of a temporary covering that might be put over some of the murals that could be removed if they're being used in teaching, or could be removed for art historians, but would prevent students from seeing them and prevent that kind of trauma that's been described from students seeing these murals. I think that a compromise needs to be found. The most minimal is to put up some signage here that explains what's going on in each mural and explains Arnautoff's intent. And I think the explanations are important. Someone was mentioning that there are American Indians depicted in the mural behind you on the right. No, that's the Boston Tea Party, where the Sons of Liberty dressed up like American Indians and dumped tea into the Boston Harbor. But the fact that someone saw that as a depiction of American Indians means that they don't know the history of the Boston Tea Party. And as a historian, that troubles me a lot, because it suggests that there's some basic problems with the school curriculum. How do I feel when someone stands up in the middle of a presentation and starts reading a statement and tries to shout me down? I find it all really disappointing. Whenever I give any kind of a public lecture, I always try to leave time for comment and reactions. You know, if someone doesn't like what I'm saying, I want to hear that, but I'd like to finish what I'm saying before that happens.
You were shouted down, right? I think I heard that.
Yeah, he was shouted down, yeah. But I mean, these people who are for the destruction of murals say that people are whiteys, they've been colonized for supporting these murals. Why is it that they don't even know the history of these murals?
Well, as I was just explaining to the other interviewer, I think there's a real problem with the curriculum in this school and other schools. You know, and I understand why there can be problems with curriculum. These days, teachers are under intense pressure to teach to the test.
Common Core.
Because of the standardized testing that all the students have to go through. And that makes very little room for anything other than teaching to the test. So I understand the problem that teachers are under. But in a school like this should be a part of the curriculum in history, in the arts. It can even be a topic in writing classes for students to use their writing skills to comment on the murals. You know, this is an incredible teaching resource, and I know some of the teachers here are using it, but it does strike me that there's not nearly enough of that going on.
How do you explain that the superintendent and the Board of Education apparently don't even know about the history of these murals?
I can't explain that. You have to ask them.
I mean, it's kind of shocking. They thought that they would vote to destroy them and then move on to the next business.
That's right. No, I find their role in this very disappointing. You know, I cannot criticize those who are opposed to the murals because they are explaining the way they feel when they see it. And I can't tell them that they're wrong. They feel what they feel. When I see them, I see something very different. And other people also see something very different. And I think there are two legitimate perspectives here, and that it is a job of the school board to find a way to recognize both of these as being legitimate. And to me, that means there has to be some compromise. You can't destroy them, but you also can't leave them the way they are. So some compromise needs to be found.
And the history in these murals, it seems like there's a lot of history in these murals here.
Absolutely right. I mean, there's the history of the American Revolution. There's the history of the French and Indian War. There's the history of slavery. There's the history of the dispossession of American Indians with the settlement of the West. You know, all of this is central to what should be taught in American history classes. To me, I mean, I'm a retired college professor of history. I have never been happy with the way the school curriculum divides American history. The way they have divided American history in the public schools is that the first half of American history takes place in junior high, in middle school, and the second half takes place in high school. That means that students who are in the 7th or 8th grade are learning about the two great injustices of early American history, slavery and the dispossession of American Indians. I think they need to be older when they deal with those kinds of problems with American history. But, you know, that's the way the curriculum has been structured for the last 10 years or more. And it's too bad, in my view.
And there's going to be a ballot initiative on the ballot to prevent them from destroying the murals. What's your view on that?
Well, as a political historian, I've always had problems with making laws at the ballot box. But in this case, if that's the only way to do it, that's the only way to do it. I hope that some compromise is found before it goes to that.
Now, Mayor Brown, Willie Brown, has said that he's opposed to the destruction of the murals, and his daughter came back and was going to George Washington High, came back and had a discussion with him about these murals, and he learned something as well.
No, I read that in the paper, and he said the same thing on CNN. And I was very happy to hear that, because I think that's exactly what should be happening.
And no signage. Why isn't there signage on these?
I think it's a long-standing fault of the people who run the school district that there is not appropriate signage in front of these murals.
Last, have you been surprised by the outpouring of support for the murals, not only in San Francisco, but nationally and internationally?
I was surprised and very pleased.
My name's David Duckworth. I'm here to see the murals that have caused so much controversy and before they're destroyed.
And what do you think about this controversy?
I think for a school district to not take responsibility and educate, that is a terrible thing. We should approach this problem in terms of education. Victor Arnautoff was an educated man, and he understood that if he was going to paint history, he was going to paint history as it actually was. And that is what this school in this present day should be focused on, teaching history as it actually was. They've abdicated that responsibility by deciding to paint over these murals.
But the parents have said their kids have been traumatized by these murals?
Which is exactly why an educational institution should be helping these students understand why these murals are here, why they depict what they do. So I would have to guess that you could then, by logic, extended logic, not teach these same children about the institution of slavery, because they would become traumatized, which in essence is saying, well, we can't educate. You know, get real. Can you educate or not? And apparently the San Francisco School District is unable to educate.
Works of art shows our history as it should be. It shows the history as the ugly of our history, the beautiful of our history, and it's just everything. It shows what they don't want to teach us. They don't want the books, what's not in our book. I'm with him as my group. We're from the ARC, so we came here to see the murals, so we see our history. And I think it's a shame that some kids can get offended, but yet they can sit there and shoot each other up on Grand Theft Auto and see blood and guts, and they can't handle these. They can't handle this stuff. And this is like pretty tame compared to the games nowadays. So I'm like wondering, is there some kind of agenda here to cover up the history when the kids are playing violent video games with blood and guts, and they can't handle a little bit of the history? I would just tell them, I just tell them, grow up, learn about it, and they should be learning about it. If they can't from the school, learn about it on YouTube. Learn somewhere else and find out what your history is.
What's your name?
I'm Jacob Sockness.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're happy to see the murals today?
Yeah, I'm happy to see them.
Okay.
I'm offended. I've seen stuff all my life. I've seen videos, documentaries, and read about it and stuff.
Charles Jackson.
Charles, there's quite a commotion here today about these murals at George Washington High. How does this whole controversy strike you about the murals?
Misguided. I think that the murals show a view of, or a person's view of what he thought America was like at that time that is realistic, and apparently some people are offended by it, and I don't understand why. But
they've said that children are traumatized, Native American children are traumatized?
I would talk to the kids and see. I think that one of the problems is that we don't teach an accurate history of the United States. And if we did, then the children would have absolutely no reason not to recognize this for what it is. This is how it was. And we sort of have whitewashed it. I know when I was in school 60 years ago, you know, we were the good guys and everybody else were the bad guys. It's only now that you see a lot of books and history courses and whatnot that depict America as it was and say, well, you have to accept it and you have to move forward from that.
Are you surprised that in 2019, in San Francisco, with all the murals that exist in San Francisco, the school board and the superintendent would be in favor of destroying the murals and spending $600,000?
I'm very surprised. And I guess that I was just thinking that it's one thing for the students to be upset and think that they want to have it destroyed. But as a taxpayer, I have an entirely different point of view, and I think it's really foolish to destroy it.
How could it be that the school board and the superintendent would support something like that? What's behind it?
I'm not sure. Well, I guess they're elected, aren't they? No, seriously. I think it's because they're elected. I can't imagine why any adult would come look at this and not say, well, gee, we're not teaching history well to the kids. What they really need to do is improve American history as it's being taught here to the kids.
And there is no signage here. There's no information about what these murals are. Apparently, they're world famous national artworks.
Yeah.
You find that surprising?
No, that doesn't surprise me. I was telling someone else. I'm from Detroit originally, and Diego Rivera did a series of murals like this about the auto plants and how they dehumanized people and whatnot. Well, the people who paid for the fresco were the Fords and the Chryslers and whatnot. They were not happy with the fresco when it was done, but they accepted that it was art and it was someone's point of view.
They didn't try to destroy it.
They may have tried a little, but it was there, 40 years later, 50 years later.
Well, you think they'll be successful in destroying these murals?
I hope not. I don't know, but I hope not.
Where does it end?
I don't know. Don't know. They're going to have to... It would be interesting to get all of the kids together without adults in the room who are twisting their arm to find out how they really feel and to set up a history course that they can all take about American history at this point in time to get some understanding of it.
It could be a requirement. Every student in San Francisco Unified School District has to have a tour of this.
They really should. They really should.
Really get an education.
It would be
part of it.
Yeah, it would be a great thing for them.
And what kind of work do you do? Are you retired?
I'm a retired surgeon.
Here they are, all these. So we're here today at this special 2-hour opening of the murals, of the world famous Victor Arnautoff murals. And we're with Gray Brecken. Gray is a historian, has written about the murals, geographer. Welcome, Gray. First of all, this is quite an opening here for the murals.
It certainly is. These murals never got such attention before. As you said, I think they're suddenly world famous. As a matter of fact, I know they are. Probably the most famous murals in San Francisco now.
And people had never heard of Victor Arnautoff. Who is Victor Arnautoff?
Well, Victor Arnautoff was, of course, a Russian who came over here early in the 20th century, and he actually came from an upper-class Russian family, but was radicalized during the Great Depression, and by coming in contact with Diego Rivera, became a card-carrying communist. And so what he's obviously doing here is anti-racist. He's showing the father of our country with all of his warts, but also all of his virtues as well, too. It's a rather balanced view of George Washington's career.
And there were efforts to destroy this mural. Why don't you talk about that, the long period of time that they wanted to destroy it?
Well, there have been, they've been controversial ever since they were painted, and there have been attempts to destroy them, but Dewey Crumpler, the African-American artist who painted the response murals in the early 70s, said that these murals are absolutely integral to his. But lately, probably in the last 3 years or so, there's been a very small but very noisy group of people to whom the school board has knuckled under. And what they want to do is to destroy all of the murals, not just the two provocative panels, but all of them, because they see them as being racist. They insist that they're racist and represent white supremacy, and thus any of us who defend the murals, whatever our color, obviously have to be in favor of white supremacy also.
So the defenders of the murals have been accused of being whitey, colonized. What do you feel about the attacks on people who want to defend the murals?
Well, I think it's really below the belt. I mean, it's clearly very racist on their part. In all the meetings I've gone to in the name of fighting racism, the room has just been awash in racism, in fact, actually. That's what all of this is about, because they simply won't listen to anybody who says that these are anti-racist. They've made up their minds. They know that they're racist, and they want them destroyed. And so, therefore, anybody who defends them has to be racist themselves. It's really kind of cockamamie logic, if you can even call it that.
And what does it say about the superintendent? He said to the school board and to the public he was shocked when he saw these murals, and the school board seemed to be surprised about these murals?
Well, yes, and the president of the school board and the superintendent wanted them to, they made it very clear that they wanted them destroyed even before they held pro forma meetings to decide what to do about them. They'd made up their minds. These are not the marks of an educator. An educator is clearly not only about learning themselves, but also teaching students to learn. And you don't just start out by making up your mind and then never change it. I think that the people in charge of the school board now are a disgrace to San Francisco and to education, and I'm all in favor of seeing them recalled.
And nationally, it seems that this has become a big scandal. I mean, San Francisco has been known for its world-famous murals, Coit Tower and the murals in Rincon Annex, and now there's an effort to destroy them?
Well, it's not. It's actually an international scandal. People all over the world are taking notice of what's happening in San Francisco, not only because of the crime of destroying a great cycle of frescoes, such as these, but also because of the implications. Because if the school board can succeed here, then it's going to embolden people to destroy works of art anywhere, and it won't just be in public schools. They will go into the museums as well, too. Anything that anybody finds offensive will be fair game from now on.
And
Trump, very dangerous. Very dangerous.
Trump has argued, that you should not destroy murals of Jefferson and slave owners, and these supporters of the destruction of the murals are saying that they want to destroy those murals. What is the difference between these murals and, for example, Confederate monuments?
Well, Confederate monuments clearly were racist. There's no question about that. We know when they were put up. We know what they were for. They were to legitimize lynching, the lack of civil rights, segregation, etc. These are just the opposite. These are actually to show the crimes upon which the United States was built. They are not racist. They're anything but. So, in fact, these are sort of the polar opposite of the Confederate monuments. The problem is that there are other WPA and other New Deal works of art that can be seen as racist, and they, of course, will be next on the laundry list of the people who want these destroyed. I think they went after the wrong murals. I think it strategically was a real blunder to go after these murals because they're exactly not what the people who want them destroyed claim that they are.
And you've been spending now maybe decades trying to educate the public about the importance of WPA monuments, of the murals and art. It seems like this whole controversy has actually helped your efforts.
I think it has, actually, ironically. It's not only helped my organization, the Living New Deal, because we're trying to alert people to the treasure house across this country that we have of New Deal art done during the 1930s during the Roosevelt administration. But ironically, I think it has certainly enhanced Victor Arnautoff's reputation. And
83 years after painting.
Absolutely. I think, he would have loved the discussion. In fact, I've never known how he got away with painting these murals when he did.
Well, maybe it's because he didn't put up any signage about what they actually were about.
It could have been that. Yeah.
If he had done that, then the right wing and the witch hunters would have said proof positive.
Yes.
These were against the American.
But they were, nobody paid much attention to them except a few of the students here at George Washington High School until this controversy erupted. And now, as I say, it's an international cause célèbre. So in a way, it's made Arnautoff an extraordinarily famous artist, which, he was well known in the Bay Area at the time, but not to the extent that he is now. He's now internationally famous.
And he studied under Diego Rivera. Diego Rivera's murals in Mexico and around the world, many of them show the subjugation of the indigenous people, the torture of the indigenous people. Yet it seems in Mexico, the students are brought by their teachers to the murals to see the murals so that they understand their history. Is that the case in San Francisco? They can't see these murals?
That's a very interesting contrast because in Mexico, they're rightfully proud of the great murals by Rivera, Siqueiros, and Orozco, the Tres Grande. And here, there is a lack of education about what we have, so people generally aren't aware of it. And then occasionally there will be this sort of upsurge of proud ignorance about what these artworks represent. That's what we're seeing now. These, as many people have said, this is a great learning opportunity. It's amazing. I mean, they're really educational. And that's what Arnautoff intended them to be. What disturbs me about what the school board is doing is it doesn't want to educate, it wants to infantilize what they call the children. These are not children here. This is a high school. These are adolescents. They're doing an apprenticeship for adulthood with all of its complexities and pain. If they're offended by this, but not offended by the violence and the racism in digital video games that they all play, or in rap music, or action movies, then, they're not going to be fit to be adults later on. I mean, this is so disproportionate because they're claiming that these are too violent. Still images today of allegorical violence are nothing in comparison with the violence in which we're all steeped all the time now as entertainment. This is education. This is not entertainment. And that's the big contrast. One of my favorite books was done by a political scientist named Neil Postman. It's called Amusing Ourselves to Death. And it was written during the 1980s, during the Reagan years, and it's about how entertainment is replacing education. That's what you see in this controversy here. They want entertainment. They do not want education.
Handing out our article from Revolution, which is entitled Identity Politics Hustlers Sanitize the Life of George Washington.
So what's your position on the mural?
That students should be critical thinkers and understand that indeed George Washington presided over the deaths of Native Americans through the westward expansion, was a slave owner, was one of the largest slave owners during that period, and these murals tell not all, but part of the truth, and they should be here, and they kids should be able to look at history and understand the truth.
Well, the parents of these kids say they're being traumatized. This is creating traumatization of their children if they look at these murals.
Yeah, I think what's more traumatizing is to be in this country that was founded on genocide and slavery and continues to this day to have no future for these kids. And I feel that the future is actually understanding this history and fighting for an actual revolution.
What do you think about these murals?
I think they're beautiful.
You're not traumatized by the murals?
I think it's to show the part of our country that most people are ashamed of, so I think they should stay. They're pretty.
So you want to see this history?
Yes, because otherwise it's going to repeat itself, the history.
You go to school in San Francisco?
I will be, yes.
What school are you going to be going to?
FACE, French American School.
How old are you?
13.
And what's your name?
Donatella.
I'm Carol Denny. I'm an artist and a musician in Berkeley, California, and I'm so thankful so many people came to show concern about these murals. They're so impressive in person. I've only ever seen photographs of them, so this is profound for me to get a chance to really see their scale and their color and the dramatic composition and realize they're frescoes. I've never seen anything like them, yeah.
And you were at the school board speaking in defense of the murals. Are you shocked that the school board voted unanimously and the superintendent to destroy these murals and spend $600,000 to do it?
I'm definitely shocked. I'm also puzzled. I don't understand what they're trying to accomplish by destroying a priceless New Deal work of art. I think they brought a great amount of attention to these remarkable murals and to the New Deal. So in a peculiar way, I believe their efforts have backfired. And I really hope to institute some kind of permanent protection for not just these murals, but New Deal artwork and other murals as well in the city. We can't risk losing something so profound and powerful.
And as an artist, musician, the parents are saying that it was traumatic for their children to watch this. A psychologist, licensed psychologist, said that her children would be traumatized by watching these murals. Do you think that holds water?
Well, it's hard to say because I went to both of the school board meetings and people seemed all to be alluding to other people's trauma without expressing their own trauma. But I'm going to allow for that to be possible. Art, certainly Arnautoff, after reading the biography of Arnautoff, it's clear that he wanted his art to be a tool and the weapon of ideas, I think is the way he put it. He wanted to provoke people. He wanted to enlist their imaginations and to disturb people at times. So I want art to be able to do that. I feel very strongly that not all art suits all people, but that doesn't mean that you should have the right to destroy art more generally. It just doesn't follow. For me, it's a non sequitur. Yeah.
And there is a history of censorship in the United States, an effort, in fact, to destroy the Coit Tower murals and the Rincon Annex murals. You think this is history repeating itself?
Yes, I do. So I'm so thankful. The people of San Francisco seem so sensible about this. They seem to be coming in droves to the aid of, well, Arnautoff, long past his life, but his legacy needs their help.
My name's Sandra Halliday. Both of my kids attended public school in San Francisco. I'm a public school advocate and an arts advocate. And I would like to see a creative solution put forth by our school board that perhaps if there's only 2 or 3 panels in this mural that are offensive, could we creatively, temporarily, but without destroying them, cover the pieces in question rather than talking about destroying the whole mural? And I'm wondering why we're not creatively coming up with solutions that can address all sides of this equation.
I mean, in San Francisco, there are problems in the schools. There's a lack of funding for the teachers, not enough supplies for students. Are you shocked that the school board would spend $600,000 to destroy these murals?
I think the more pertinent question is, right now, the San Francisco City School Board of Supervisors is made up of 4 members who are previously on the school board, and whoever's on the school board is probably using it as higher office stepping stone, and so how they come up with solutions right now is going to be how they're going to come up with solutions in the future, and this is not how you do it. And I'm wondering if there's a creative option to paint over, temporarily cover the 2 panels in question rather than destroying the whole mural.
And why do you think they would do this? Vote to destroy the murals?
This is the school board that wanted to cancel the school nutrition plan without having a backup. This is the school board that wanted to pretty much dismantle the whole of the visual and performing arts department without having a plan to move forward. So this school board is a knee-jerk response. I believe they have the best interest of students at heart, but they're going about this the wrong way. And this is the school board that we need to watch very closely, because these are the members of the school board who are going to be going on to try and seek higher office.
Well, Mayor Willie Brown has suggested there might be necessary to have a recall of the school board.
I think that San Franciscans need to really watch how the school board acts and what the school board does and make up their own minds about that. I do think that there is a desire on the part of the school board to protect vulnerable children, which I agree with, but they're doing it in a way that is painting themselves into a corner. And I think that if there are 2 panels in question, we should be looking at creative ways to protect children from those 2 panels, not destroy this whole mural.
And Superintendent Vincent Matthews has a history apparently of supporting privatization, charter schools, the Edison School in San Francisco. What is his background, and why did he say that he was shocked about these murals at the school board meeting? You would think that being from San Francisco, he would be aware as superintendent what they were, and he would have signage up if people did not know what they were.
I know that Vince Matthews was involved in Edison schools, and I do know his past, and I do want to give him the benefit of the doubt that he has learned from his past mistakes. I do think that he has been a classroom teacher. He was a student in the schools, and I believe that he's working from what he thinks is the right place. And as I said earlier, I think that we need to be able to be creative about coming up with solutions and perhaps looking at ways that we can cover temporarily without destroying the 2 panels in question and preserve the rest of the murals. That I do not think that you deal with trauma by covering it up and burying it. I think that you deal with trauma by talking about it. You can creatively cover up the panels in question without destroying the whole mural.
And in Mexico City, Victor Arnautoff worked with Diego Rivera. And in Mexico City, the students are brought by their teachers to the murals, Diego Rivera murals, which show the subjugation, the torture, the treatment of indigenous people. Why is it treated differently in Mexico than in San Francisco?
No, well, I think that what you have to realize is the valid argument of the school board is that when you go to a museum or you go to a public place to see other murals, you are choosing to do that. This is a public school, and these students do not have a choice. They have to come here, which is why I'm suggesting instead of painting over and destroying the whole murals, the 2 panels that are in question can be creatively covered. There could be some text over the top of it, but we don't have to destroy the murals.
Why is there no text now on the murals now?
Well, there is a response mural that was
Do it crumply.
Exactly, who, by the way, Professor is in support of keeping these murals. He is not in support of covering them up. I know many former students at George Washington High School who are students of color who are part of that interaction with Black Panthers, and they really felt that the murals should not be covered.
So they don't agree with the idea of destroying the murals?
Absolutely not. I do not agree with destroying the murals, but I do think that there are some panels in question that are giving students trauma, but we don't have to destroy the whole mural to cover those up so that students don't have to pass by those every single day. If it makes them feel uncomfortable, I respect that. So why don't we just creatively come up with a solution to temporarily cover those pieces in question and not destroy the whole situation. I think that you can see from the people here who've not seen these before, these are incredible works of art, and we shouldn't be destroying works of art.
Randall Wilson, San Francisco resident, former teacher for the district.
You say you taught here in the school district?
Yeah, for 20 years. I retired 2 years ago and saw the controversy about the murals.
Are you surprised that they would want to destroy the murals, the school board and the superintendent?
No, not at all. I'm not surprised in the last 5 years. I think prior to that, there would have been outrage. But in the last 5 years, no, I can totally see the move towards censorship, and this is a part of it.
How is the move towards censorship reflected elsewhere?
Well, you'd have to look at the curriculum, but the discussion, the purging out of books out of the library, this is all part.
What books have been purged?
Many of the classics. Many of the classics. They're not in style academically, and my feeling is that you don't take away things, you add to it, and the same thing here. You don't take away the controversy, you teach to the controversy. You don't wipe it out. You say, oh, there's a story here that needs to be told. If these were Diego Rivera murals, there would be an outrage about it, but they're not.
He actually did art under Diego.
No, I know. The man, they knew each other. I was in Mexico City. I saw outrageous murals that Diego Rivera did against the government, against the traditions. Same thing. You teach to it. You don't destroy it as if it didn't exist. It's ridiculous.
In Mexico City, they bring classes. Teachers bring their students to see the murals, and it shows the
controversy, the history, the colonial history, the church, the government, the repression of the people toward each other, upon each other. They don't whitewash them or destroy them. Well, Rockefeller did that with Rivera's murals in New York City, and everyone was outraged because it was censorship of art. Same thing here. They want to destroy them. What does that tell people? Oh, I don't agree with something, therefore we'll destroy it. We won't have the discussion. That's what art does. It brings the discussion. You don't destroy it. It's ridiculous.
Well, haven't they helped actually publicize the Victor Arnautoff and these murals?
Group. Look at this group. There's 150 people in the lobby. It's wonderful. It's wonderful.
So they've actually, for Victor Arnautoff, they made him again a real story.
Yeah, they've made it a cause celeb. So now everyone is here. It's great.
Well, my name is Rick Baum, and I teach at City College of San Francisco, where we have a mural that was done by Diego Rivera, which I guess some could see is just as controversial as this, because some of the images.
What are some of the images that are controversial?
Well, the one that really strikes me is the one of a wooden Indian that was used to sell cigars in front of a cigar shop, and I would think people would find that objectification very offensive.
You think it should be destroyed?
Of course not.
Why do you think that the school board superintendent have voted to destroy these murals?
Well, the little bit that I know, I heard some of the testimony, it's just hyper identity politics that just gone over the top. But what's really striking is that this is San Francisco of all places. You would think if anywhere there would be opposition to art censorship, it would be in San Francisco. As you can see, there's a big crowd today, and it's obvious because whenever people try to censor things, it usually backfires. I mean, I always use the example of Two Live Crew, which was a rap group in Southern Florida that no one had probably heard of until the authorities went after them, and then they sold millions of copies of their albums, because that's exactly what people wanted to see. I always feel if you want to get kids to read, if they aren't reading books, you tell them that this is forbidden, this is a censored book, and it'll probably be the first thing they'll want to get their hands on and want to read. So it's a way of getting people to read books, as an example.
I'm John Gollinger.
And John, you're here today. There's a big crowd here. What's all the controversy about?
Sure. I mean, these are now, I think it's fair to say, the most famous New Deal murals in the world. And for good and bad reasons. I think people want to see what all the fuss is about. And there's a threat, really a decision at the moment of the school board of San Francisco to destroy all 13 of these murals.
Are you surprised by that?
Surprised by that decision? Sure. I think like many, I recognize that there was going to be some effort made to deal with the legitimate issues that have been raised, but simply whitewashing all 13 murals and trying to be done with it, I was certainly surprised that was their decision.
Well, Stephen Cook, the president of the board, said we're going to move on to other things. Apparently they're not moving on.
Yeah, no, I think the response largely speaks for itself, and to the extent that decision remains in place, in the coming weeks, a group of us, the Coalition to Protect Public Art, of which I'm helping lead, is going to put forth a measure for the voters of San Francisco to weigh in on the issue and resolve it one way or another, and make sure that there can be some reasonable approach to managing the issues that have been raised, and not just sort of a do nothing or destroy all the art. And because this is going to come up again, certainly there's other New Deal murals in San Francisco.
Are you worried about the future of murals in San Francisco?
Sure. I think the precedent of just simply destroying these would empower those who would like to do the same thing at other places. And I hope that everyone, whatever their view on the content of the murals, can find a way to move forward so that students will have a choice to see pieces of this art that are troubling to them, but also other students would have a choice not to see those. And rather than, if you whitewash them permanently, no one has a choice to see them ever again.
And why is there no signage here about what the murals are about?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the fault of every school board and school administration, and for that matter, every art community leader in this town for the last 85 years. Like the day that these murals were open, there should have been, at minimal, some signage that described that it's New Deal art, paid for by we the people, that it's an important piece. It's by Victor Arnautoff, who worked with Diego Rivera, and that each of these murals has a story. The one we're standing by is George Washington attempting to create a national university, which was one of his dreams that did not come to pass, giving his estate in the effort to create a national university that failed.
So this would be one of the murals that would be destroyed?
This would be destroyed. The one above us is Lady Liberty, putting the star as a representative of the original colonies out, and sort of, representing the founding of this country and how it occurred. I mean, to my knowledge, no one's raised any objections to these murals, and yet the school board at the moment has voted to whitewash these as well.
All of them, and they have nothing to do with what they're...
So we're hopeful there can be a really meaningful conversation that focuses on the issues that have been raised more specifically and not on sort of the project as a whole.
Do you think that the attack on these murals, the effort to destroy them, has actually backfired, and now people are getting educated? Who is Victor Arnautoff? What these murals are? Nobody who knows who Victor Arnautoff is.
I mean, I certainly think that the education about New Deal art and the value of it, and Victor Arnautoff is whatever happens if these murals are destroyed. Nevertheless, Victor Arnautoff has other works elsewhere, and including at Coit Tower, which I'm very involved, and that I hope everyone will come see.
They've tried to privatize Coit Tower?
Yeah, there have been other issues with other New Deal art. And as I'm walking around, I haven't been here in a while, I've noticed separate and apart from the maintenance, the keeping of these murals or destroying them, there's graffiti on some of them, there's damage. These and other New Deal art, as at Coit Tower, need to actually be taken care of. And that shouldn't just be the job of the school district. I hope they will invite, if these murals aren't destroyed, people who care about art, the Arts Commission, the art community, to lend their services and time to make sure that the students who go here are able to enjoy and protect and respect art and what it means.
And the New York Times writers have said these are national art treasures. They should be protected. It seems like there's been a national outpouring of support for these murals.
Yeah, I think this has gotten attention around the globe, and that speaks to, the complicated issues behind art in general, and certainly art of the 1930s. That's not, if we had a painter paint these today, they would be different pieces of art. But then it speaks to the issues of free speech and what art can mean, and that it's something that I think most artists would say once they create the art, the viewer is the most important person, not them. And viewers, all of us, I think, have all different opinions, and that's how it should be. And we can argue and debate, and to me, that's the best of what art's about.
My name is Peggy Toy.
And Peggy, why are you here today?
I'm here to defend the murals. And I'm here to defend the students who are not children. They're adolescents, and they're on the cusp of being adults. And I think they can handle analyzing and understanding art.
And the advocates of destroying the murals saying that the kids are being traumatized by watching these murals, and that's why they should be destroyed. What would you say to the parents of these kids?
It's unfortunate because over time, we change our minds and we change our attitudes about things. And if we destroy the artwork, these kids have no recourse to change their mind about the art. If you destroy it, they have no opportunity to learn. I've changed my mind on many political views over the decades, but by destroying it, the kids lose the opportunity to change their mind.
And are you surprised or shocked that the superintendent and the school board would be unaware of the reaction to the vote to destroy these murals? I mean, they seem to be shocked about the backlash that they're getting.
I don't know what the thought process was for them, but I get the impression that they are surprised. That people care about art and they care about freedom of speech and learning.
And they have accused people of being whitey or colonialists if they're opposed to the destruction of the murals.
Yes, I take umbrage with that.
What happened?
The impression was those of us who want to protect the art, we've been labeled, even if those of us who are minorities, we've been labeled colonized.
You've been labeled colonized?
Because I support the murals.
Who said that to you?
They didn't say it directly to me. I heard it at the board meeting. If I was a minority and I supported the murals, I was colonized, and I took umbrage with that.
Why is that?
I don't consider myself colonized. I have a free mind. I've been, highly educated at this school and colleges, and I just think that I'm allowed to have my freedom of thought.
Now, they have said that that students here say meet at the dead Indian. You went here in Washington. When did you go here? Did you ever hear that?
I've never heard that phrase. That went out in the 60s, really. And to be honest, people don't understand. Kids live to the west of the school, come through this entrance. The whole rest of the school, we came through the east entrance. I never came through the front gate. So, the majority of the students who are coming from the east entered through 30th Avenue. So it just, to me, kind of non-thinking to say that everybody has to pass by these murals every day. And when you pass up the stairs, you turn left or right to the classrooms. You don't walk by the mural that's...
So if students were traumatized, they wouldn't even have to go through this entrance?
I don't want to, judge their how they feel about the murals, but I'd rather that they study the art and learn from it, rather than just take a didactic taking of the murals. It's not didactic. Art is to be interpreted and understood.
And the school board and the superintendent set up this committee. I understand the people that are on that committee, if they were opposed to the destruction of the murals, were called whitey. There was racist connotations to them. What does that say about a committee set up by the superintendent?
It's unfortunate because we're supposed to be educating kids to open their minds and be critical thinkers. We want children to be critical thinkers, not critical.
And when did you go to Washington High?
I went between 1974 and 1977, and I had such a wonderful experience from such positive teachers, and that's why I continue to volunteer.
So you love this high school?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
I think now it's becoming world famous with the murals here.
Well, I think Arnautoff is smiling down at us. His artwork is being seen as it is.
84 years after.
That's what art's supposed to do, enlighten. It has a long history, and I hope it has more history.
Here, otherwise just put your zip code. What's your name? Roberta McLaughlin.
And what are you trying to get?
I'm just trying to get the school board to reconsider their ridiculous decision.
Okay.
They need to use the opportunity, like many teachers here at Washington High have done, to use the murals to educate students as opposed to whitewashing it. It's just insane.
Well, why do you think the school board and the superintendent would push the destruction of the mural?
I don't know the reason for the school board choosing this action. It seems to me, from what I've read, I haven't spoken to them personally, but it seems to me that they're under the misguided notion that these murals will just foster inequality and racism. I think these murals do the opposite. They actually encourage people to learn the truth about Washington was a slaveholder. 12 U.S. presidents were slaveholders. That's whitewashed in our history books. We really need to have us be more educated today so that we could stop the racism that's ongoing in this country right now. we need to be educated.
So what would it mean to have these murals destroyed what would it mean for these murals to be destroyed in your viewpoint, if they did destroy them?
It would be stupidity. It would be totally ridiculous because it misses the opportunity, and it's censorship. And it harkens back to dark days throughout the world when we censored books and art and literature. We need to be forward-thinking.
And did you go to KPFA? Did you go to the school?
No, I didn't go to the school. I lived up the street, but I went to a private Catholic school.
Are you still based in San Francisco?
Oh, yeah, sure, I'm the same.
Why would they, it seems like the superintendent and the Board of Education were unaware of the history of these murals. They were shocked by them. How could they be unaware of these murals?
I don't know. I think we need to probably boot this school board out and get another group of citizens that really understands what these murals could represent, so that students aren't misguided and think that this is a racist depiction of our history. In fact, it shows us how racism has been so embedded in our country's history, and that we must really try to do everything we can to eliminate racism in our society.
I'm John Garvey. I'm a native San Franciscan and a historian. I've written 5 books on San Francisco history. My oldest brother, Mark, attended George Washington High School back in the 70s.
What do you make of all this campaign or controversy over destroying the murals?
It's valid. I can see the point of people when they see images that they believe are not good. But however, that's a teaching point. That's a lesson that a student of history studied history. The United States, we have a tremendous history. We should not erase it. And if we go around trying to erase our history, for example, here with American Indian people and African Americans, we want to let future generations know what happened during the development of our republic, right? We live in a republic, not a democracy, and we really need to educate people. This is how this great country was developed.
And the parents of some of these kids say that their children are being traumatized by these murals. What's your response to that?
I used to coach track and field for youth. And one of the locations we practiced at was here, George Washington. A variety of people. I coached shot putting and discus throwing just a few hundred yards from here. All different races, right? None of them ever said, John, those murals upset me. What it is here, I believe, is the adults are making it a political issue, right? It doesn't make sense, because if we're really upset about the murals, we'd take George Washington off the $1 bill. We would rename Washington, D.C. We would do all these awful things, right? But we want to keep history alive. We want to take a stand for history. I came here today to take a stand for history, for common sense. Remember Thomas Paine? There's what he said about common sense. There's not much of it going around. So what we really need to do is be proud of our history, even though it's painful to many people. When you study history, most people were oppressed. Most people suffered discrimination. That's why they came to America, right? Wherever they were being harmed, and they came here. So what we really owe to the current generation is, let's not tear down our murals and monuments. And I think they're talking about $600,000 to whitewash these beautiful murals, right? It does not make, let's put that $600,000 into education or college scholarships for some of these people. I really question the leadership of the school district and what their motivations are.
What do you think their motivations are?
I'm not exactly sure, but I believe they're how did I come to what I'm telling you today is that's by studying history. I went and got a master's degree. I've written 5 books. I've spent most of my time interviewing people from all different cultures, trying to get an understanding of what life is all about and how to interact well with other races and other people. So what we really need to do is I encourage the people on the school board, send them back to school, have them learn history, right? And it's good. You're in a classroom environment. You can disagree. You can agree to disagree with the professor and your fellow students, but when you have an appreciation of history, you'll understand and art. You'll understand the motivation of the artist, what the artist was trying to achieve, and how to put historical objects or murals or statues into historical context, right?
Are you shocked that the school board and the superintendent, Vincent Matthews, would be unaware of this history of this mural? It seems surprising. They're in charge of the school district and running the school district, and yet they seem to be shocked and surprised about the outpouring, not only in San Francisco, but nationally and internationally, against the destruction of this mural.
I never met the gentleman, but I really believe he needs a history lesson. And if you want, I can help him learn history, seriously, and show him the archives, introduce him to some professors to really give him a new understanding of this great country. Because, again, if we go around and erase history, we're actually doing a disservice, and I'll use that word again. It's a disservice to everyone that lives here, everyone that visits here, and we really need to, for example, I really believe people that live in the United States need to understand how the indigenous people were treated, how slavery happened, regardless of our constitution that we had at the time. They need to understand that several of the American presidents were slave owners. So if we sweep everything under the rug, history will suffer. And what I'm here today, I have a friend of mine that just passed away. He was very active in Sons of the American Revolution. He could tie his ancestry back to one of George Washington's top officers, and his name's Charles Likas. He passed away, and he was in the group that Dan Ashley was involved with. Channel 7 News is also a descendant of revolutionary ancestors. I'm not in that category, but my ancestors most of them came from Europe. I do have some from Africa, actually. Through DNA analysis, I am African. And as an African person from North Africa, I approve of these murals. So they're talking about African Americans. I'm in that equation. So United States, most of us are mutts, okay? We're mixed. Now, if you do the DNA, I'm also Asian. If you do the DNA, we're just so wonderful because we're all one. And if we start just looking at skin color exclusively and not being aware of medical science and DNA and your family tree and getting political, that's when history is ruined. And you can see the governments, the different states during the past few world wars that we were involved with. They did the same thing. They went around, let's clean up history, right? What? And we don't want to do that here in the United States. We want to let all different forms of history exist, and then people can learn from history, right? And understand history and appreciate history. Maybe even have some narrative statements here interpreting history for people that would see this, what they believe to be an offensive mural, and educate people, right? This is a school that our tax dollars have paid for. We need to educate people.
Paul Arnautoff, great-grandson of Victor Arnautoff.
What do you think about this controversy about your great-grandfather?
The first thing, honestly, is I'm overjoyed with the reception of the artwork that people are still talking about it 83 years after they were created. I can't help but think that my great-grandfather would be honored and excited to hear that people are still talking about this art. It's still sparking controversy. It's still provoking debate and discourse.
83 years is a long time. And
it's a long time to stay relevant for anybody. So
he spent a lot of time doing these murals. Yeah, he was trained with Diego Rivera. I mean, it seems like it's a contribution to the art world, to education, to this high school.
Yeah, he was a social realist who, and he learned that and the fresco style from Diego Rivera. And what's interesting about that style is that it's you have to do it very quickly. You painted these over the course of 12 hours, each panel, and before it dries up. And once it's done, it's permanent. And that's what's so incredible about fresco, is that you have to live with the art that you've created, whether you like it or don't.
And the school board has said that it's too expensive to remove it, so they have to destroy it. What would you say to the school board and the superintendent in San Francisco School District, Vincent Matthews?
I would say don't destroy the art. Don't paint it down.
And Victor Arnautoff has become world famous now, New York Times. Are you surprised by the controversy it's created?
I am surprised. I think, again, the silver lining of all of this is that his message persists, that his original intent was to raise up the voices of people that were not being heard, and to take a daring stance at the time to depict the realities of our country's Western expansion. And to see that under attack now is disheartening. But I'm optimistic that the response and the national attention that this has gotten, that greater voices and reason can prevail.
So the relevancy of his art is today.
Sure.